What's up, y'all? It's Joe Master Lee here. Now, America's Got Talent Championship Edition, Season 2 is in full swing. The acts so far, the diversity of acts so far have been absolutely phenomenal, and it's been a really fun ride so far this year. So we got a lot of fans here who are following their favorite performers. And one thing that I noticed in a lot of the comments is that people are asking questions about how the voting system works.
What's going on?
How do people move on from round to round? Who are these super fans? So I thought I'd try to help clarify to you how everything works, because the rules for AGT Champions this season has changed, because the rules for AGT Champions is completely different from how AGT normally works. So unless you're following the rules that specifically, you might be confused by a couple things that are going on here. So I'm gonna break all that down for you, which will result in some good news and bad news for different performers. Whether you're following someone like Marcelito, Angelina, Jordan, Unbeatable, or even one of the acts that so far hasn't made it to the semifinals, will they be able to get through via a wildcard round? I'm gonna answer all these questions for you right now. So this is the second season for AGT Champions, and this year they have 40 contestants from all over the world compared to 50 contestants that they had last year. And last year, it was a pretty even split between acts that were from AGT shows versus international acts. And this year, they've definitely skewed much heavier towards international acts. In fact, about almost 70% of the acts this year have come from other countries, have done well in their local version of the show. So that's something I really love so far. So all these contestants so far have gone through the first round. That took 4 weeks with 10 contestants each, with 3 contestants that were moving on to the semifinals. That includes 2 acts that were voted through via the superfans and 1 act voted through via the judges. Now there is a 4th act that automatically went through via the golden buzzer that goes automatically to the finals. And those 4 acts are Angelina, Jordan.
Oh my God!
The Silhouettes.
Oh, I was wrong. He didn't die.
And the Unbeatable. And Boogie Storm.
Oh, what? No, that's not fair.
What's interesting about this mix is that only Angelina Jordan is the lone singing act, because usually when we see these golden buzzer moments, it tends to skew very heavily towards singing acts. There is no quarterfinal round, mainly because there's only 40 contestants this year versus, say, last year where there were 50. All right, so the rules for the semifinal round is pretty straightforward here. That means there are 12 acts in the semifinals. 6 of them will be chosen to go through to the finals. Of the 6, 5 will be chosen via the superfans, and 1 will be chosen via the judges. To be clear, there will not be any golden buzzers this round, and probably most disheartening for a lot of you who had favorite acts from the past, there will be no wild card. That's something that they had before, where judges could pick a few contestants that can move on that didn't qualify. Because that's eliminated, some of our favorite acts that have been eliminated so far, including Lulu's favorite, Connie Talbot, unfortunately, there is no wild card round. It's something I wish, quite frankly, they would add back in for next season. Now, what's interesting about the semifinal round this time is that there's a real diversity of acts. Unlike traditional AGT voting, so many of those acts that go through are singers. This time around, we literally only have 1 singer in the semifinal round, and that's Marcelito Pomoy, an amazing dual voice singer from the Philippines, someone we've been following online for the last year or so. And for everyone else who, tracks stuff virally online, you already heard of him. You know how amazing he is. Breakdown looks like this, right? There are 3 acrobatic aerial acts, which includes Duo Transcend, Duo Destiny. I know there's 2 duo groups, 2 couples here, which had somewhat similar acts, and the Sando Trio Russian Bar. So all 3 of them will be performing in the semifinals. Now, there are 2 magic acts that have gone on here to the semifinals as well, which is Magician X, aka Mark Spellman, absolutely amazing, bigger than life type of magic, and Close Up Magician, Diana Diaz. Now there are 3 kid acts in the semifinals. That includes the dog trainer Alexa, violinist Tyler Butler Figueroa, and comedian JJ Pantano, who's the cutest kid in the world. Oh my God. There are actually 2 comedians in the semifinals, the other one being Ryan E. Miller. And wrapping up, there are 2, what I'm gonna call novelty acts. And that includes cabaret performer Hans, who has this over-the-top show that he does with an accordion, and the contortionist Strauss Serpent. Serpent, appropriately named. So let's talk about how the voting system here works, right? Because it's very different than the traditional voting system that AGT uses in its annual show. Now, we watched AGT last year in 2019, and because all the voting is done across the United States, anybody can vote, and they can vote 10 times, whether for the same person or spread around different performers. And because of that, this was controversial because AGT has started to invite a lot more international acts to its traditional annual show. And what that's resulting in is a lot of American acts progressing to the finals with a lot of international acts not progressing. And a lot of people are speculating that's because these international acts don't have an automatic fan base in the US to be voting them through. And in fact, the only international act that even cracked the top 4 was The Unbeatable, who placed 4th in a very controversial finale. Now, The Unbeatable is back this year. They are on through the finals via the Golden Buzzer. And like I said, this year in AGT Champions, there's a lot of international acts. So unlike AGT, AGT Champions uses something they call the superfans. So who are these superfans? Let's get into this. It's interesting and at the same time rather mysterious still. Now these superfans are only US-based fans. This does not include voting from anywhere else in the world. And in fact, it doesn't include voting from the audience. So these superfans have to apply online. And one of the reps for AGT has said that it represents a cross-section of America from all 50 states. I don't know if it actually means that there are at least 50 judges from all 50 states. They don't actually reveal how many judges they are, which I think is a little bit too nebulous for me. I kind of want to know how many judges there are. The other scenario is that these superfans are handpicked by the producers and they come to the show, but they're not part of the audience. They're apparently sequestered off to some other location, some secret place, and they're watching the show. Now, I don't know how they're watching the show. Is it via the monitors or something like that? I feel like that's not the most ideal viewing experience if they're not actually in the audience. So that's what we know about the superfans so far. The other thing about the superfans is that they aren't always the same people from one episode to the next, from show to show. And in fact, these superfans don't actually have to watch every single show to vote for the one that they're on. Interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. The other thing about the superfans is that their actual votes, the tally of their votes, are never publicly shown, which has always actually been the case for AGT. Unlike some other reality talent competitions, like American Idol, doesn't reveal how the breakdown of the votes go. Now, as you can imagine, because of the rather mysterious nature of how this is done and how AGT doesn't reveal everything, I can see how that leads to a lot of speculation, a lot of questioning of whether or not these votes are fair, especially when someone's favorite performer doesn't go through. And I'm here to say that I can understand that. I'm not going to defend their practice here because, quite frankly, I would love some more transparency. I want to know why certain artists got through and other ones didn't. But as I always tell people, independent of the voting system, independent of how they perform in this competition, what's undeniable is that the talent is real. When these people up there performing, whether they're singing, whether they're dancing, they're giving it their all. And there's no question that because they made it to the show this far, all of them are deserving of an audience and praise. My hope is that AGT continue to tweak this format so that it is more transparent and more fair ongoing. Especially since the show format is changing, both AGT's annual show and the Champion show is increasingly gone international, right? More and more foreign acts are coming in. That's also the same evolution that's happening for these other shows in other countries. If you go watch Australia's Got Talent, a lot more international acts are starting to go there to perform. Same thing with Britain's Got Talent. What's happening here is all those different shows now are starting to share talent. Now, I think that can be a little bit controversial because what that does is it starts to eliminate a lot of the natural homegrown acts from ever making it through because the people that are, quite frankly, more talented from other countries are starting to come in and take up these slots. But at this point, at least for AGT, it's still called America's Got Talent Championships. even though less than 50% of the acts so far are from previous AGT shows. All right, y'all, I hope that's helpful. I try to break it down as clearly and as detailed as possible. Can't wait to see what happened in the semifinal rounds. Let me know what you think, if you think you got a better format in terms of what AGT should do here, because I am sure they're listening. I'm sure they're constantly looking at how they can improve the show, especially since that so many of the acts are international, and also especially since so many of its viewers now are international thanks to YouTube and people like you. All right. Peace out, y'all.
Normally I don't like slow motion, but man, that was crazy good.